Tyson Davis, what made you into a composer, a serious classical music composer?
I started out dabbling around on the piano at my grandmother's house as she was cleaning her chandelier one day. She started showing me some of the very basics of piano, where middle C was, how to properly sit at the piano, etc. I just got really excited, and my mother played piano when she was a little girl. I insisted on her showing me more and more, and so we went to a local music store. She got me a little beginner book, and it was a really good book, and it taught me a lot about notation, how to truly read music, not just play it. And that got me really interested in writing down music. I began piano lessons, and I started playing little beginner piano music. Eventually, I became so fascinated by this language, this code of notation, that I started elaborating on the little pieces that I was working on, that I was playing, and started coming up with my own pieces.
Were you composing at the keyboard, or were you writing the notes down, hearing the music in your head first? Just give us an idea of what your compositional process was then.
Mostly improvisation. So I would be at the keyboard with some staff paper, and I would try to notate best I could what I was playing.
Have you used any of the software like Finale or Sibelius or any of the other classical music software apps?
I use Sibelius for my main software, but as of the last couple of years, I've been handwriting a lot as well. For instance, I'm actually sketching a new orchestra piece right now. My compositional process right now is mainly, honestly, it's like I'll hear it, what I want, very specific timbres, and I will handwrite it down because it seems like writing in a notation software is a little too constricted and a little too structured for me to really get my ideas down. And so I have a sketch pad of staff paper and have random ideas all over it. Then I will try to make that into a little bit more coherent work and put down where I want certain instruments to play. For instance, like the flute in its highest register there, etc., dovetailing into a solo violin, etc.
Now, you've had some wonderful experiences, especially over the summer with some of the teachers that you've worked with. I noticed Jennifer Higdon was on the list at Curtis. Tell us about that experience because she's a marvelous composer.
She's a lovely person, yeah, actually she is. I actually didn't study with her per se. I had several interactions with her. I studied with David Ludwig mainly that summer, her counterpart at the Curtis Institute.
So tell us what David did for you.
I was working on a piece, actually, over the summer. I had my teacher back at home at UNCSA, the North Carolina School of the Arts, proposed to me to write a piece for a recording session for the ensemble Eighth Blackbird. At the time, I had begun sketching that work. I was having a little writer's block with one of the movements, small 10-minute work divided into 4 movements. And it's actually programmatic. It's based off of my favorite Twilight Zone episodes, the original Rod Serling Twilight Zone series. I was working on this movement that had it was extremely free, and so he was helping me get grasp an approach to writing aleatoric music. This was my first start in writing music that wasn't exactly strict in time. They were great lessons. They were very insightful. He gave me some ideas about, instead of this, how about you go here, etc., and develop this idea. Really amazing teacher, an amazing person.
I notice that and I listened to a bit of your string quartet, number 1. Tell us about when you wrote that and how old you were when you wrote it and what the inspiration was for writing that.
The string quartet, I wrote it in about November 2017. So one of my earliest pieces that I have recorded, actually. The thing is that it's extremely non-programmatic. It's quote-unquote absolute music. That's why it's called Quartet Number 1. I was actually struggling really hard to write the first movement. It took about 2.5 months to write the first movement. I had so many ideas with the first movement that I didn't develop the motifs, and so it kind of felt a little combobulated at times. I would go back and erase and then develop that idea. And eventually, I think, after I developed the first motif, which was a viola solo, which is like a very linear type line weaving, almost like serial music, but not serial composition. The piece kind of wrote itself. It kind of finished itself, that first movement. And then it's strangely, as soon as I finished the first movement, the second movement just hit me like a landslide, and it took me 3 days to write it. Second movement is like a very fast presto movement with extremely contrasting characters. There's this one melodic line that's extremely lyrical in the first violin, followed by interruption by the second violin that's extremely wild. It follows this kind of scherzo like ABA form. It just wrote itself like a landslide. It was really extraordinary.
The next piece I was interested in, which is a recent composition, is Microludes. Tell us about that. I love the fact that it's written for ensemble of 13 instrumentalists. Tell us about that.
So I won this competition, this MATA competition. This was the first competition that I actually won. This piece was premiered in, I want to say, November 2018. Basically, I had an opportunity to write for a chamber ensemble of 13 musicians. That was the largest thing that I could write for. And the other instrumentations I had already written for very recently, which was a wind quintet and I believe a brass quintet. With this piece, I thought the Ligeti piece, the Kammerkonzert, the chamber concerto by Georges Ligeti, that was written in 1969, has very similar instrumentation. Ligeti uses he interweaves certain instruments that have similar timbres yet different timbres with each other in sort of kind of like a Klangfarben melody, a tone color melody like way. I thought of that
and
work.
just for our listeners, the composer you're talking about is the one that's famous for writing the theme for Space Odyssey 2001, am I right?
Yes, yeah.
Actually, it was stolen from him, if I remember correctly.
It was actually, strangely enough. And Georges Ligeti, he went to see the Viennese premiere of that film. All of a sudden, he just started recognizing this music. Little did he know at the time, it was his Requiem. Afterwards, he was really upset, and I believe he left the theater, and he sued Kubrick. But he got the rights, and Ligeti made plenty of royalties for the rest of his life after that. It turned out very fortunate for him, but he was extremely angry when that happened.
Well, you can see where I'm going with this, too, because just picking up on that particular theme, it's like Carl Orff, who made a fortune off a particular piece. His birthday's today, by the way.
Oh, wow.
But you need to protect your music. I assume that you've taken steps to copyright it and do all of those kinds of legal things so that you are protected?
Definitely, yes. Essentially, how copyright works these days with most composers is like, it's not as complicated as one would think. You just staple copyright at such and such a year by the composer or by Tyson Davis, etc. And then once you get that work published by such and such publisher, or you self-publish, which I'm currently self-publishing, and honestly probably will self-publish for the rest of my life, unless somehow I get an immense amount of work, which I won't be able to self-publish then. My work is pretty much protected for the most part.
What are the next stops in your education, Tyson?
I actually am about to leave for Purchase College. I will be staying there with the National Youth Orchestra of the United States of America for a couple weeks. I wrote a piece for them. And this piece was commissioned by the U.S. Embassy in Berlin to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. They're going to be rehearsing that there, and I will be going on tour with them in Europe for the next 3 weeks. They will be premiering my piece there in several countries.
That is absolutely super. You're going to be attending college at the SUNY Purchase, or?
Oh, no, actually, no. The orchestra is just stationed there. I actually will be attending college at Juilliard in the fall.
You will?
Yes.
That's marvelous. What a hotbed of inspiration that's going to be. My goodness.
Yeah, it will be quite extraordinary. I'm quite excited.
Yes, you should be. Tyson Davis, we're going to follow your career with great interest. It's just been a delight speaking with you and learning about how you became a composer at such a young age. It's quite remarkable. I look forward to hearing more about your compositions, and I know you'll be in touch when you have recordings, YouTubes, or whatever, so that we can let our audience know. I mean, we're here in Raleigh, your hometown. I assume it's your hometown.
Yes,
so
it is.
You're a hometown guy, so let's give you as much publicity as we can, okay?
Yes, and your station has influenced me and helped me so much discovering new classical music. I remember when I when I really first started composing, when I was about 8 or 9, I was randomly flipping through the channels while me and my mother were driving, and then all of a sudden I heard this classical music. And then I got really excited because I was like, I didn't even know that they had a classical station anywhere these days. And ever since then, until I went away for boarding arts high school, I have listened to that station religiously. It was really my first chance to really have an exposure to other people that listen to classical music.
Remember that on Sunday night at 9 o'clock, we have a program devoted exclusively to 21st century music. Occasionally, we dip back into the 20th century. That's 9 o'clock till 10. It's called Wavelengths.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You've seen our app. I assume you have our app on your smartphone. If you don't, just look for WCPE, the classical station. You'll see the app and be able to take us with you everywhere.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, I definitely will.
Travel safely, okay? And I look forward to actually meeting you in person at some point.
I agree. Same. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care now.
Take care.